Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back discussing an alternate cut of Hellraiser Bloodline. Alternate Cuts is a new series Jason from Horrific Nightmares, JM, and I will be adding to our video rotation. This will more than likely be just a once-a-month series, and obviously, as of right now, we're aiming for the last Monday of every month. In some instances, it may end up being the fourth Monday, if there are 5 Mondays of the month, but we'll see how it plays out. In this series, we will be discussing alternate cuts of various movies, usually horror. Sometimes these alternate cuts will be readily available, but other times they may be nearly impossible to find. Of course, for Jason and I to discuss them, we must have them in our collections. For this alternate cuts premiere, we have decided to highlight Hellraiser Bloodline, the Workprint. Now, I have to make this clear. The Workprint we own and watched is the original Workprint of the film. It is not the same Workprint included on the Arrow box set. The version we have is the most complete cut. This is the closest we will likely ever get to the original vision of Hellraiser Bloodline. This here that I'm showing is one of my massive media book editions from 84 Entertainment. This extremely rare release does include the original Workprint. Here is the back of the Monster Box edition, and you can even see some images specifically from the Workprint. There is some really cool extras inside of this Monster Box as well. But I've shown this in the past, so I'm not going to focus on that. This video is specifically about alternate cuts. Jason and I will be filming these videos with the general assumption that you've seen the theatrical versions of the films. This won't be a review of Hellraiser Bloodline. I will simply be describing some of the differences between the Workprint version and the theatrical cut. By the way, off the top of my head, there are at least 5 versions of Hellraiser Bloodline. There's the theatrical cut, also known as the Alan Smithee cut. There's Kevin Yagher's original director's cut. There's the Joe Chappelle version, since he was brought in after Dimension did not like Yagher's cut. Then there's the Workprint version that Arrow released on the box set. And finally, the original Workprint version, which Jason and I will be discussing in these videos. This Workprint is closest to Kevin Yagher's original director's cut. Rather than opening the film in space, like the theatrical cut, this Workprint version begins in the past, in Paris. That alone is a huge change, since Hellraiser Bloodline is typically known as the Hellraiser in Space movie. Often, putting horror icons in space is seen as a joke, and Pinhead in space was no exception. So if someone not a fan of that concept watches the theatrical version, they will immediately be put off to it. Whereas if they were able to watch this Workprint, or Yagher's original cut, they might be more interested in continuing. The summoning of the demon and possession of Angelique is the first thing we see in this original Workprint. The opening scene of the theatrical cut is not seen until much later in the Workprint. Another big change is Angelique's voice. For whatever reason, the actress playing her was overdubbed in the theatrical cut. The Workprint version features her real voice, throughout. I personally prefer it that way because I prefer her real voice. There's a raspiness to it that I like. The Workprint then moves chronologically through the merchant bloodline, starting, of course, in the past in Paris, like I said, then transitioning into present day, or the mid-90s, in America, and finally ending with the futuristic sequences in space. In other words, Act 1 is past, Act 2 is present, and Act 3 is future. In a movie called HELLRAISER Bloodline, that's way more fitting, if you ask me. In the theatrical cuts, the past and present montages are spoken through the stories of Merchant. They are essentially flashbacks, whereas in the Workprint, we're seeing them unfold in real time. With the movie edited this way, it almost works as an anthology, and in my opinion, it flows much better. I definitely think it affects the pacing in a positive way. Now, the last of the biggest differences I want to discuss is the inclusion of the infamous gambler's scene in the Workprint. This sequence is not included in any other version of HELLRAISER Bloodline, and that includes the Arrow Workprint. The only way to see it is in this original Workprint. Of course, I would guess it would be in Yager's director's cut as well, but that has never seen the light of day. That's why I said this original Workprint is the closest we have ever gotten to that, and likely ever will. The gambler scene is infamous for a reason, and I cannot even begin to imagine why it was cut from the film. The effects, even unfinished in this Workprint, are awesome. The look of the characters and their inevitable, brutal deaths. It's literally the most memorable scene for me in HELLRAISER Bloodline. And it's not even in the theatrical cut. Thank God for this Workprint, because if not for this, we would have never seen it. No, not all of the effects were completed in this Workprint, because, well, it is a Workprint. But there are enough of them to enjoy. And no, there is no score in the Workprint, because, again, the movie was unfinished. But you can imagine it and where it would appear. The ending in HELLRAISER Bloodline is also different in the theatrical version compared to this Workprint. Like most other differences in these two cuts, I again prefer the Workprint, although there is one aspect from the theatrical cuts that I would have also included. But who knows? Maybe it was supposed to be there. With it being unfinished, it very well could have been. Overall, the Workprint version is the better version, in my opinion. That's with the realistic expectation of it being complete, with the score and the finished effects. Obviously, the theatrical version has better quality, but again, that's to be expected. It's incredible how many changes were made to this film. HELLRAISER Bloodline could have looked very, very different from the version we know today. From what we saw in this Workprint, this movie could have been something special. And believe me, it's not that I don't like HELLRAISER Bloodline in its theatrical form. I love it. I'm a huge fan of this franchise. But what could have been would have worked so much better. Jason and I ranked the HELLRAISER movies earlier this month, and in that video, I had Bloodline second to last. Had the theatrical version been closer to this original Workprint, it would have ranked higher. But the best thing about each version existing is the fact that we have alternate cuts. Please be sure to check out Jason's video to hear his thoughts on the original Workprint of HELLRAISER Bloodline. Have you somehow seen it? If so, what do you think of it? Comment below and let me know. Which alternate cut will we cover next? Check back soon to find out. Until then, remember, physical media matters. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that thumbs up and, be kind, subscribe.